cove.co.
Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar on Azure Service Bus better managed and monitored using Serverless360. Here we are Eddie Literacy, product consultant of Serverless360, and I have with me Nishant Prabhakaran, junior product consultant of the same product. So we have an important announcement here. We just successfully completed our Integrate 2019 event at UK London. And if you have missed it, here we have another opportunity to get along with the Microsoft product team and interact with MVPs in the integration space. Here there is Integrate 2019 happening between June 24 to 26 at US Redmond, Washington. So do join us there and then get to explore the integration space. You also get a 20% discount and grab your coupon code right on the screen. I would also like to introduce you to Serverless Notes. This is a community initiative by Serverless360, wherein the industry experts share their tips and tools in better working with the serverless space. So do get in touch with the integration experts at Serverless Notes. Now here I have with me Nishant, who is going to share his experience working with Azure Service Bus. Since this webinar is going to focus on what is Service Bus and how it can be better managed and monitored using Serverless360, I invite Nishant Prabhakaran to share his experience working with Azure Service Bus using topics.
Hi everyone. Let's start with the question, what is Service Bus? Azure Service Bus is a messaging service on a cloud used to connect any application, device, or services running on the cloud to any other application or services. It handles the messages in first in, first out format. It comprises of queues and topics. A queue follows a linear messaging model, and a topic follows subscriber model. So let's see where the service bus used in a business. Azure Service Bus is used in serverless application built using Azure Portal as a messaging service. So let's take an example of cab booking scenario. When a user books a cab through the web application, the service bus will pick up the message and Logic app will check those messages whether the details in the messages is valid or not with function apps and put the messages into the service bus topics. Now service bus topic filters the valid and invalid messages based on the topic subscription rule defined. We have seen how powerful the Azure Service Bus is and how it can be used effectively in an orchestration. Though it has powerful capabilities, there are some challenges in managing and monitoring them. And the first challenge would be no integrated tooling. When there is a need to define a topic subscription rules to filter out a valid and invalid booking messages into separate topic subscription, it is not possible with Azure Portal. And no message visibility. Though it handles the business critical messages in an effective way, there is no message visibility in Azure Portal. And next one will be a no message processing. When there is a problem or outage of a receiver end of the queue, there would be a need of processing those messages to some other service bus queues or topics, which is not possible with Azure Portal. And next one will be no consolidated monitoring. When there is a need to get consolidated report on performance or message count or the size of the message on every service bus entity is not at all possible with Azure Portal. And next challenge that we face is no auditing. Consider a scenario when there are multiple users working on a single entity. There might be a need of tracking the user activities, which is also not possible. And there are several challenges are also being not listed here, and we are actually facing those challenges. And I want to hear from Elilaracy that how the Serverless 360 tool can solve these challenges. And Elilaracy, over to you.
Thank you, Nishant, for efficiently summarizing the challenges that you faced in managing and monitoring your serverless entities in the Azure portal. And the best part is I do have a solution, a one platform solution to manage and monitor all your Azure serverless applications, that is Serverless 360. And I'm sure you're not going to agree simply with me when I make this statement. Uh, the real-time demo. And here I am going to walk you through the actual product to let you know how I can help you overcome all the challenges that you encounter in managing your Azure serverless applications as such. And since our focus today is of a service bus, I'm going to drive this demo focused on the capabilities of Serverless 360 in managing and monitoring Azure Service Bus entities. So let me pick up the same application that you were mentioning about, the cab booking system. So the first and foremost challenge would be like no deep integrated tooling. As you were rightly mentioning, and when you were implementing this scenario, you would have been required to define topic subscription rules to auto filter your messages. So as you were rightly mentioning, Azure portal doesn't have any straightforward solution that would facilitate you doing this. But here in Serverless 360, we do let you define your topic subscription rules at ease. So the user doesn't need to have extraordinary skill set or knowledge on .NET SDKs to achieve this at all. So here we have option to define the topic subscription rules, which even an person without any technical knowledge can achieve it at ease. So you can define an correlation filter, a Boolean filter, or an SQL filter, which will help you auto filter your messages. I would also like to emphasize on certain other important deep integrated tools that Serverless 360 offers. Let us take, for example, an service bus queue. Say you would have defined the properties of the queue at the time of building your orchestration itself. Say as you start testing your orchestration, you find that the properties of the queue needs to be redefined. You cannot do it as such in the Azure portal. But here in Serverless 360, you can very easily modify or manage the properties of your Azure Service Bus queue. The same holds good for topics and topic subscriptions too. You can edit the properties and you can modify them to meet your business requirement. So imagine a scenario like your messages are found to expire or get moved into the dead letter queue due to TTL expiry very soon than is its expected duration. Then you can redefine the time to live of your messages by modifying the queue property here. So this would ensure the messages, prevent the messages from getting dead letter before the desired time limit. And I can modify the properties of the queue. I'll show you one more interesting feature. So here I can also save the properties of the queue as a template. Imagine a scenario where there is a requirement for you to define an organization standard in creating the entities. That is, so you expect all of your queues created in your organization to adhere to the property called duplicate detection enabled. That is, you want to ensure the messages that flow into your service bus queue or topic to have unique message ID. So in that case, you can define an organization standard by defining a template. You can either save an existing queues property as a template, or you do have another option called template, wherein you can create a template with a specific set of properties. Let me show you one template which I have already created. This would have an extensive set of the queue properties that would let you define your organization standard here. You can enable partitions, you can enable recurse duplicate detection, and you can define a duplicate detection time frame window, and you can save this. So what is the advantage of creating this? So when an user attempts to create an entity that would belong to one of your business solution, say the staging booking management is the solution, wherein I would like to create and service bus queue, you can the user can adhere to the template and quick create the entity from the pre-created template. Say I can just give the queue name, and you can find the size of the queue, and all the properties that I have defined in the template are already applied here. So you ensure save in time and effort, and also adherence to organization standard by creating templates. So imagine you have created your queues and topics, topic subscriptions, and the topic subscription rules in your staging environment. You have defined them appropriately, ensured they are working as expected. Now it is time to move to production. So your intention would be to quick move your entities from the staging namespace to the production namespace. So if not Serverless360, this is going to be a time-consuming task, both in terms of building the orchestration and also in testing the orchestration. But here with Serverless360, it comes handy. Say here you can choose the target namespace, which is going to be your production namespace, and you can choose to import your entities from your staging namespace. You can select the entities that you would like to import, and you can import them as such. So when you import a queue and a topic subscriptions within the queue, within the topic, and the rules defined within the topic subscriptions, everything would get exactly replicated. And this would in fact save an adequate amount of testing and development effort. So booking handler namespace is my staging environment. I would like to import my booking handler queue and the data validator topic into my target namespace. So this way I'm quick importing all my queues and my topics, its subscriptions, and the rules defined within my topic subscriptions. So these are just glimpses of the management capabilities we have got. Apart from this, we do have, so like you can manage your SaaS shared access policies. Say you have client applications interacting with your service bus queues, and you want to provide them only with need-only permission. You can create and manage shared access policies right from Serverless360 itself. You can create a policy that would define the permissions that the application is expected to possess, and then you can manage or modify, regenerate the keys of the shared access policy right from Serverless360 itself. Say if I need to regenerate the key, I need not go to the Azure portal. You can just right away do that right from here, and you can even copy the key to use it or share it with the client application. Say if you are building your orchestration, and if you want to mock your web application which is going to push messages into this queue, you need not wait for the web application to get completed or hosted. You can push in messages. You can send messages into your service bus queue with the help of Serverless360. You can pre-construct your message, and you can push in specified number of messages with a defined set of custom and properties, and you can push the messages into the queue. So this way we can simulate the real-time environment and check whether our system is working as expected or not. So the next challenge Nishant was mentioning about is there is no message visibility. Yes, indeed. The biggest challenge that any user would report as they work with the service bus entities is they do not even get to see the messages in the Azure portal. Like this has become a buzz in the integration space that even Microsoft has recently announced, and the announcement happened in Integrate 2019 UK event. They are bringing in Data Explorer that would let the Azure users view, peek, and receive the messages. But we have gone way beyond that. Like we have got out of box message processing capabilities. You can retrieve messages either in peak lock or defer mode from the active or dead letter end of the service bus queues and topic subscriptions in Serverless 360. So in peak lock mode, when I retrieve a message in peak lock mode, I'm receiving the message without affecting its active listeners. So any client application which is receiving message from this queue can still continue receiving that message. But when I want to restrict my client applications from accessing that specific message because I'm going to do something really, well, a modification to the message, and I want the client applications to wait until I resubmit it back. If that is my requirement, then my choice of mode should be a defer mode. So as we saw in the previous screen, this queue has got 0 active messages because my client application has already picked up everything for processing, but it does have 10 dead letter messages. So let me get into the dead letter queue and try to pick the top 10 messages. As you see, there is option for you to pick messages from a specific sequence number also. Say especially when you are debugging your orchestration. Say you find a logic app specific run has failed and you get to know that the message with a specific sequence number was processed in that run action. You can pick that sequence number, come here and then try to figure out the message by sequence number so that you get your message right presented in front of you. So here, since it is a dead letter queue, I also have the dead letter resend presented right in front of me. So in most of our real-time scenarios, we would be dead lettering the messages either with a custom dead letter resend, or it might automatically get dead letter due to certain system defined reasons like time to live expiry or header size exceeded or maximum transfer hop count is exceeded. So here we have an option in Serverless 360 to filter out messages by their dead letter resend and view and process these messages. So as I access my service bus messages, I can pick them by a specific dead letter reason, and this reason can even be a custom reason, say like invalid customer ID. So I right now do not have any dead letter messages which has been dead letter due to invalid customer ID. If I have, I would have them right presented in front of me, so that this would be very convenient for me to take necessary action on the messages which has been dead letter due to a specific dead letter reason. So one of the challenges Nishant was mentioning is there is no message visibility. So here we provide you message visibility, like you can see the custom properties, the message content right in front of you. And you can also perform much more actions beyond this, not just viewing the message details and error details. You can even choose to resubmit the message back into the queue or to a different destination depending on your business orchestration. So at the time of resubmission, you also have an option to back up your message into an associated storage blob. So I can choose a storage blob which is also a part of this composite app, and I can proceed to resubmit. You can choose the same queue or another queue to resubmit. So did you notice an information box popping up the moment I selected this topic? So what does it say? It is trying to give me intimation that I am resubmitting to a service bus entity which has got recurs duplicate detection property enabled. So why is this property very important? So when this property is enabled on a service bus queue or topic, there is a possibility of losing the message that I submit to this entity. Although if the message ID is found to be duplicate within the duplicate detection time frame window, the message would get lost. When I say lost, it would neither be found in my source queue or dead letter queue, nor in my destination queue or topics queue active end. So in this way, I will never be able to restore the message, and that is why Serverless360 proactively informs me to be cautious when I try to resubmit a message into a duplicate detection enabled entity. So how do I overcome this? Serverless360 also provides me an option to overcome that. I can either choose to regenerate the message ID into a unique GUID, or I can even manually edit the message ID to meet my business requirement. But I need to ensure this message ID is unique and then proceed to resubmit. See if my requirement is slightly different. I need to modify the content of the message and then proceed to resubmit. Then my choice should be an repair and resubmit action. As a part of this repair and resubmit, I can modify the content of my message. Say if I found that an required parameter was missing, I can choose to add the parameter, modify the text. If I'm working with a session enabled queue or topic, I can add the session ID. If I need to add a custom property to let my downstream application know that this is a repaired message, I can set repaired is equal to true. And if I want to redefine any of my system properties, say I want to set a specific time to live for this message, I can do that. I can set and scheduled enqueue time. That is, say if I want to ensure that this message will be available for my client applications to receive only at a specific time, I can do that. If I'm working with a partition enabled service bus queue or topic, I can set this message to be enqueued into a specific partition by specifying the partition key here. So you can work with service bus queues and topics with various set of properties like session enabled, partition enabled, or duplicate detection enabled. Serverless360 is compatible with all the properties of service bus queues and topics. And we have taken utmost care to ensure necessary intimations are provided to the users. Though you do not have complete knowledge on the service bus queues and topics, the Serverless360 system will provide you intelligent information to better work with your service bus queues and topics. And I'm choosing to proceed with resubmitting the message to the same queue. So this way I have repaired and resubmitted, and I also found I can select multiple of my messages at a go and choose to resubmit. I also have an option to download all my messages into a compressed file format. I can save them as a compressed file format wherein each of my message is going to be represented as an individual text file. And I do have options in my differ mode to purge my messages. So these capabilities are indeed helpful. But what is the feasibility of me manually getting into each of my service bus entities to do this message processing? So that is where there is a need for some amount of automation, isn't it? So we understand your need. That is why we have come up with service bus activities which will help you automate managing your service bus messages. So when we say activities, we have activities on sending messages to an service bus entity. So let us see how you can send messages to a service bus queue or a topic, and what do you achieve through this. I can in fact simulate an real-time environment. So let me show you how. I can push and pre-constructed message with a defined content and defined user properties, and I can push the message to a queue or a topic. I can send these messages in batch so that I simulate a real-time environment. I can set a specific think time between each of the batches. I can also simulate a concurrent environment by setting parallel tasks. I can also push in a specified number of messages at a go. And I can initiate this activity soon after I save this. And I can set a predefined system properties for the messages that I am pushing in. So this would be of great help to your test engineers. Like they can schedule this activity to automatically push in the messages in the pre-configured format, and you can enable the scheduling on specific days of a week, and you have your test system in place to ensure your orchestration is working as expected. Imagine a scenario. Say I have a business orchestration. There are multiple of my client applications subscribing to the topic subscriptions I have defined. I find that due to various reasons, my client applications have failed to process certain messages in my topic subscriptions. So what I'm looking for is an activity that will process those left behind unprocessed messages. So I need an activity on my active messages. So here I have an active message processing activity which will process my left behind messages. So how I have defined it is I need to resubmit and delete these messages from my actual topic or queue to another destination. And my failover system would ensure that it picks up these messages and then process them accordingly. So here I'm resubmitting to an duplicate detection enabled entity. So Serverless360 has got an option even in the activities section to just check on the auto generation of message IDs. So this case, the system will automatically take care of regenerating the message IDs and push them into the destination which has got requires duplicate detection property enabled. I can let this activity to be fired only on those messages which has been enqueued at or before the specified time. I can also let this activity to be fired only on specific count of messages. And this activity can also be scheduled to automatically look into the queue or topic subscription at specific time of the day to ensure all the left behind messages are collected and pushed into another destination queue or topic which will be processed by my failover system. Let us consider another scenario with dead letter message processing. Say I have got a number of messages which has been pushed into my dead letter, and because they are invalid. Say I found that the order is not an acceptable format, so my system has set and predefined invalid order as a dead letter reason, and it has pushed into my dead letter queue. So returning an unwanted message in my service bus entity is ultimately going to contribute in my Azure cost, the expense that I spent on Azure. So I need to ensure that such unnecessary retention of data is cleared off whenever it is required. So here I have got a dead letter activity which will let me clear off those unwanted dead letter messages without any manual intervention. So I have created an activity to purge invalid dead letter messages. The action that I have selected is delete from the designated queue, and I have also mentioned delete only those messages which has been dead lettered due to a reason invalid order. I can choose to fire this activity on all the messages because I do not want to retain any message which has been dead letter due to invalid order. I can enable scheduling of this activity by end of the day. So this would ensure looking into the dead letter queue end of the day, picking up all those invalid orders and then purging them off without any manual intervention. Imagine another scenario. The logic app which is listening to my service bus queue has been disabled due to various reasons. Maybe the region in which I have created my logic app has gone down. So this would have caused my logic app not to pick up those messages which has been pushed into the queue. But the messages won't remain in the active queue for a day long. They are automatically going to move into my dead letter queue whenever their time to live expire. So now the requirement is to look into the dead letter queue, pick up those messages which has been dead letter due to TTL expiry exception, and I need to resubmit them back into the original queue so that the logic app which is enabled and all good state now will pick up these messages and then process. So this way I ensure that none of the incoming orders have been left unprocessed due to the fault in my system. So here I have got my activity for dead letter processing, which will resubmit and delete those messages which has been TTL expired from the dead letter end of the queue to the active end of the queue. So this way I've scheduled my activity which will look into the dead letter end every day and then check if there are messages with TTL expiry and then push them back into my original queue. So all these activities are going to let you do better DevOps. So you can automate your routine practically like manually impossible tasks with the help of activities. You can easily manage your messages either in the active or dead letter ends of your service bus queues or topic subscriptions with the help of automated activities from Serverless360. So far we have been talking about management of the service bus queues, topic subscriptions, the messages in them, reprocessing them and all. There is another valid segment where we need to focus on monitoring. And of course, Nishant was mentioning about there is no consolidated monitoring available in the Azure portal. So what is he trying to convey when he talks about consolidated monitoring? So though we are focused on the service bus entity, queue or a topic, ultimately they are working together as an business application, and because they work together with a logic app or a function app, or they interact with other entities that constitute my business orchestration. So at any point in time, my intention would be to understand what would be the impact of failure in this entity with the rest of the entities in my business application. So what is lacking in Azure portal is I do not get an view of my business application as such. But here we do let you understand how does the status of your logic app impact your service bus queue. So what is the action that we need to take on our service bus queue when our logic app state is disabled? So we map our entities into composite applications, and that is how we started off with this session, and we represent them as an topology diagram which will let you understand how does each of your entities interact with each other. And you get an instant feedback on the status of the entities readily available on your topology diagram. If you recollect in the beginning of the slide, Nishant was talking about this scenario, and you could exactly visualize that application right in front of you here within Serverless360 application. That is a benefit of application view. So you can enable your support team to better understand your system. They would understand how does each of the entities interact with each other. They can infer the status of them at any point in time right in front of them. So this status is based on the monitors that I have created on them. So now let us get into the monitoring section to understand what are the different perspectives in which I can monitor my Serverless 360 application, and focusing on the service bus top queues and topics. How can I monitor service bus queues and topics within a Serverless 360 monitor? So as we see here, we have different types of monitors, each one of them to cater specific monitoring requirement. And in this webinar, we are going to focus on those monitors which are relevant to service bus queues and topic monitoring. So those are the status, threshold, and data monitors. So let me explain them with the real world examples or business scenarios. Say the requirement is to get an consolidated report of all your application entities in one report, and I need to have an eye on the message count in my service bus queues and topics, and I need to know what is the size of the queue at any point in time. And say every 1 hour I need a report, a consolidated report that tells me about health of each of my entity. If that is a requirement which is usually intended for product manager, for whom by end of the day, if the system is all good, that's fine, my business is still running. So if that is the requirement, then the choice should be in status monitor. Unlike monitors in Azure portal, in a Serverless 360, you can associate multiple entities into an resources into a single status or threshold monitor, and that is why we call them as consolidated monitoring. So here let us look deeper into what are all the parameters on which a service bus queue can be monitored. Here you have a good list of properties on which the service bus queues or topics can be monitored. So I can monitor them on its status, and I have interesting properties like dead letter message count. So I can turn on monitoring on the dead letter message count to get an alert whenever the dead letter messages in my queue go beyond a certain limit. I can define warning and error thresholds to define the status that I intend to receive. I can monitor on the active message count, and size of the queue can also be monitored. So all these to let you conveniently define appropriate error and threshold values, warning threshold values, we present to you the current value of the properties rightly available. So the moment I save, I'm going to see the instant feedback on the status of my service bus queue on the configured properties. So I get to know the dead letter message count is in warning state. So this report is will be generated on the configured notification channels, and I would get to know the alerts through my configured notification channels. So here my configured channel is an L1 support, which is a Teams channel, which gives me a consolidated report on status of all my entities. Say if my requirement is slightly different, say I am a developer, I need to detect any violation in my service bus queues or topic subscriptions as and when it occurs. Then my choice should be a threshold monitor. A threshold monitor can be defined to detect violations when they persist for certain duration. Say, imagine the requirement is when the dead letter message count of the queue is greater than 5, and if it stays greater than 5 for more than 3 minutes, then I need an alert, which means that my dead letter processing activity or any other custom application which is expected to process my dead letter messages is not working. So if it gets all right within 3 minutes, then I am fine. If it stays as a violation even beyond 3 minutes, then I need an alert. And to prevent spamming in your configured notification channels, you can also choose to set the limit on number of alerts per violation. This threshold monitor can be scheduled to run only on specific days of a week and between the specific hours. Say if your system is expected to work only between the business hours, you can select the days on which the system is expected to run and on the business hours within which the system is expected to run. And you can configure notification channels. Serverless360 supports 6 different notification channels: Teams, SMTP, Slack, PagerDuty, OMS, and Webhook. This Webhook is an interesting candidate wherein you can integrate your custom applications, cloud applications to an webhook notification channel. You can also choose to define your email to which you would like to receive your consolidated report alert. So this threshold monitor can also accommodate entities of different types. One significant monitoring capability that Serverless360 has, again, when compared with any other monitoring tool in the market, is monitoring topic subscriptions. So any other tool can offer only monitoring at the topic level. No other solution is available in the market which can let you monitor the properties of topic subscriptions. So here, as you see, you can monitor the properties of topic subscriptions too. Say I can set monitor top subscriptions, and I can choose various available properties of multiple of my topic subscriptions, and I can add them into the monitoring list to define the warning and error thresholds. So this threshold monitor will let me know even if one of my topic subscriptions fail to meet the expected warning and error threshold values. Say if my requirement is to check if my queue is available or not, or if there are any designated number of incoming messages flow through my queue or not. For such extensive monitoring, my choice should be a data monitor. It's for architects who wants to check whether evaluate the performance of the orchestration or the consumption in your orchestration, to detect any errors in your business application. In such scenarios, you can define a data monitor which will let you recognize and evaluate such expectations. So you can associate multiple entities, and one interesting scenario I would like to share here is like one of our customers discovered errors created by their client applications with the help of our data monitors. So let me get into one of my queue or a topic to show you how did they disclose that or discover those errors. So here there is an interesting parameter, user errors. When they turned on data monitoring on this user error, they got alerts from Serverless360 saying there are enormous number of user errors being generated on your service bus namespace. So what does these user errors mean? It means that the client application which is interacting with your service bus entity is not handling it the right way. It's generating exceptions that would lead to user errors in your service bus entities. So the user was able to discover this with the help of Serverless360, and when they looked into their application, that is when they discovered that the client application has been generating thousands of errors over years together or months together, and they came back saying it was of great help to discover the client errors with the help of Serverless360. So what are these server errors? So imagine your Azure region in which you have created the application is going down, which means your service bus entities or is not going to be available for your website to push in any new orders. This is some scenario which needs your immediate attention, isn't it? So here you can turn on data monitor on the server errors of your service bus queue or topic to get informed on failures or outage in your Azure region or unavailability of your service bus queue. Say we have an logistics client who have got client devices across the country. Say in the cars or vehicles with telemetry devices implanted, and they are moving across different countries. So at any point in time, they would send in telemetry information to a topic, and the topic has multiple subscribers to which different recipients would subscribe to and receive the information. So the use case here is like they wanted to ensure that they get defined number of messages, means their client applications are active and pushing in information within for every designated duration. So we recommended them to create a data monitor to monitor their incoming requests and messages, which did help them in identifying in case of failure in any of their client devices. You can have an eye on the size of your service bus queue or topic, or you can check over a duration of time how many messages have come in, how many active messages have come in, how many messages have got deadlettered, or how many or the scheduled messages have been generated. So you can perform and real-time analysis on the messages that flow into your service bus queues and topics by choosing appropriate metrics from the extensive list of metrics available here. So this data monitor is a kind of monitor that can help you in monitoring your service bus queues and topics in various perspectives. So this comes to by this we come to an end of monitors. But we do have an interesting candidate recently added into our monitoring section, which is our BAM. Say my requirement is to track the end-to-end flow of my business orchestration. So right from my message being pushed into my service bus queue till it is being validated by my logic app and then pushed into the topic. If I need to track the message from end to end, then my choice should be an business activity monitoring. So here, as you see, you can instrument your logic app and the participating Azure functions to capture information at every stage. And the stages can be represented here in my business activity monitor. You can get into each of the stage to understand what was the message that has been picked up for processing at this specific transaction, what is the message body, and you can even choose to reprocess these messages. So this way, this end-to-end process is going to be of great help to detect an error in any of your business transaction and choose to reprocess them. Say I can resubmit the message again into the queue and let my logic app pick it up. I can also save searches. Say if I want to have a close look at my failed transactions, I can fire a query as simple as status is equal to failed and pick up those message transactions which has failed, and I can look deeper into them by clicking on a specific stage and try to understand what is the reason behind its failure. I can save these queries for quicker access. Say I can check what is a recent transaction by a specific customer in a specific duration of time, and I can check whether it was successful or not, and even I can drill down to the details to understand what was the stage from which they booked the cab to where. So all such critical business use cases can be achieved with extensive set of capabilities that Serverless360 offers. So coming to the last most important section. See, like one of the key challenges that any customer we have been interacting with would emphasis on is providing access to your service bus entities. So the only option they have is to provide an connection string with managed claims. It is as good as giving them full control on the service bus namespace. And that is one of the main challenge they project on. Here we have straightforward solution to that. Say, I can create roles in Serverless360 which would help you define a granular user access policy on your service bus entities. So by default, Serverless360 has a couple of user roles, administrator and super user. Administrator with full control over the whole application, that is the person who would sign up, and it is limited to only one user at a time. And super user can be any number with full control over the application except for the payment and licensing section. Apart from this, you can create any number of custom roles, and here is where things get interesting. You can create a custom role with an granular user access policy. You can provide them access only on specified composite applications, and even within the composite application, you can restrict them to perform only designated actions. Say if you want to let that user resubmit messages only to that entity, not to a different entity, you can revoke this permission. That is it. So this permission is required to enable the user resubmit messages to different entities other than the source entity. So to this extent, you can define a granular user access policy. And if you want to restrict the user from not modifying the definition of the service bus queue. So as a part of this demo, we were talking about modifying the properties of the queue, enabling and disabling the state of it, or managing shared access policy, all that. All those management operations require the user to have this managed permission on the service bus. So if you do not want them to perform all that, you can just revoke those permissions. That is it. The user will not be allowed to perform the managerial actions on their designated entities. So here you have two options in inviting the user into a custom role based on the authentication mode that you have selected. So as we sign in or sign up to Serverless360 account, we have two options in choosing the authentication mode. You can either choose to quick start with an email ID and password combination, basic authentication mode, or you can even integrate your Azure Active Directory. So when here to this account, I have integrated my email ID password mode, so I can invite a user with their first name, last name, and email ID. They would get an email notification and they can sign into this application with the privileges that I have defined in the custom role. So if I have integrated my Active Directory, I will have the list of users readily available. I can select them and then invite them into the custom role. So now, one of the last challenge Nishant was mentioning about, there is no auditing. So here we have an exclusive section, governance and audit, which would help the users govern and audit each and every action every authorized user performs on your entities. We have 4 different sections to capture the actions into different specific categories. So all the management operations, say like as a part of this demo, I did regenerate the key of unique queue, unique bookings queue. I created an shared access policy and I updated the properties of booking handler. You can find all the actions have been captured here. It has clear information about who did what when, and you can even get the details of the operation that has been performed. And these records can be exported to an Excel or PDF format for further reporting, and you can also filter them by a specific duration to get the most required details. And the messaging section would have details of the message processing that we did. As a part of this demo, I did and repair and resubmit. You can get into the details of what was the content that has been modified and what was the old and current value of this property that I modified. The BAM category would have details of those actions that I did within the business activity monitoring. I did reprocess a message, so that details are available here. So you have an extensive governance and audit. No one can escape from doing a modification by in your Azure Service Bus QR topic. So with this, we come to an end wherein we have found solutions for all the challenges that Nishant was mentioning with the help.
Covey.co